Om Sadashivasamarambham
Acharya
Shankaracharya
Madhyamam
Asmadacharya
Asmadacharya
Paryantam
Paryantam
Vande
Vande
Guru
Guru
Paramparam
Paramparam
Om Sahana
Om
Bhavatu
Sahavatu
Sahana
Sahano
Bhunaktu
Bhunaktu
Sahavirang Karavavahai
Sahaviravahahi
Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavidvishavahai
Tejasvinavadhitamastu
Om
Om
Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Shanti
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah
Om
Shivaya.
Tat Sat, Om Namah
Om Namah
Shivaya.
Shivaya Om Tat Sat.
Okay, so we are now we have finished the 19th verse where we were talking about Nija Vicharanam, the self-inquiry. And we have now come to 20th verse. So please chant with me. Ahaminasha bhajaham aham taya.
Ahaminasha bhaja ahamaya.
Surati hrit swayam paramapurna sat.
Surati Swayam
Parampurna
Paramapurnasat.
So the breakup will be ahami nasha bhaji aham aham taya. So bhajyaham will become bhaji aham taya. Sfurati hrit swayam parama purna sat. So ahami nasha bhaji. So ahami here is a very rare usage. Here it means the ahankara, I thought, the ego. So ahami nasha bhaji, when the ahami, when the ego, the ahankara has been destroyed, has been subject to nasha, what happens? Aham, the pure I, the real I, which is consciousness, OC, and he qualifies it by saying hrit, the pure consciousness, which is atma, sfurati. Sfurati means shines forth, is visible, swayam, on its own, without the need of any other instrument. And what is the nature of that atma? Parama purna sat, the complete, supreme, and perfect existence. So, sat is past, present, and future. You have to recall your definition from Tattva Bodha, which is there all the 3 time frames. So when the I thought, or when the ahankara is examined, we saw in the previous verse that when we examine the ahankara, we see that its substratum is the consciousness, is pure atma, and therefore the ahankara merges into the OC. The RC merges into the OC. We realize that the RC is a dependent entity, is mithya, and therefore it actually is as good as not being there. And then only it merges into the OC. What is left is OC only. And therefore it says the pure consciousness shines forth on its own. So ahami is a very rare usage in Sanskrit. It means ahankara. And bhaji is, well, it is not sabji bhaji. Bhaji here means which has suffered. So ahami bhaji nashaha. Nashaha bhaji. The ahami, the ahankara has nashaha bhaji, suffered destruction. Nashaha. So what the ahankara falls, which means there is no real disappearance of the ahankara, right? You have to just take it as the RC has been understood as mithya. I have understood that the RC is not a separate independent entity. It is mithya only. And therefore it is as good as not being there. So the reflection continues, but is as good as not being there. What is there then? Hrit. Hrit here is the original face, OC, the real I. And the real I can never be experienced, can never be seen, because it can never be experienced as an object. It is you. How can you experience it as an object? And you realize that I, the OC, have always been there. Now, why do you say that when the ahankara is destroyed, the pure I shines forth? Because the reason for ahankara, the karanam for ahankara is what? Ajnana. ignorance of your real self. And you have the Sanskrit that rule, karana nashe karyam nasha bhavati. By the destruction of the karanam, the cause, the product is also destroyed. The cause is ajnanam, ignorance. When you destroy ignorance, not only is ignorance destroyed, you don't need to make any other effort. All the products born out of ignorance are also destroyed. Ahankara is a product born from ignorance. So when ajnanam nasham takes place, when ajnanam is destroyed, ahankara will also be destroyed. And therefore, we have to remember that all our sadhanas, they have no meaning unless they culminate in self-inquiry and atma vichara. Because the self-inquiry alone will eliminate the mortal, limited I, ahankara. And of course, we have to add here, the atma vichara has to be done along with Guru Shastra Upadesha. So the question might come up, what about those people like Ramana Maharishi himself, right? He never had a guru. So we say that for spiritual prodigies, which means that they have been born with knowledge because of Guru Shastra Upadesha, because of learning having been done with the Guru and the teacher in the previous Janma. So Purva Janma Guru Shastra Upadeshena, that knowledge is already present. And such people have a specific name in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Anybody remembers? Those of you who have done the 6th chapter.
Yoga Bhrashta.
Yoga Bhrashta. The person who is born because his previous sadhana did not grant him moksha. He is born again for the purpose of completing his journey, but he is born with the knowledge, so he doesn't need to go in again and have Guru Shastra Upadesha. So such people may not have seen a guru at all. And Ramana Maharishi, of course, is one of them. So in this verse, if you see, there are 3 words which are aham. So, ahami, aham, and aham. Ahami is the first word. Then the next word is nasha bhaja aham, aham, taya. So that 3 ahamis. So you have to be very careful about interpreting them. The first ahami, as I said, is ahankara. And that is the direct meaning. Vachyartham, the direct meaning. The other 2 ahams, aham and aham, one is aham is a repetition for emphasis purposes, referring to the real I, the pure, unlimited OC, unlimited consciousness. Therefore, the first aham, the ahami, has to be interpreted using vachyartham. The other 2 ahams, aham means what? Basically I, right? I means what? The word I can be interpreted using 2 different methods of interpretation. One is vachyartham, direct meaning. One is lakshyartham, implied meaning. So, how many are not familiar with the 2 words, vachyartham and lakshyartham? Everybody knows.
Sir, I remember you discussed about it, but can you discuss it again? I happened to slip it once.
I've forgotten.
Okay. So, whenever a word is used, you can take the direct meaning, the literary meaning appearing in the dictionary of the word. For example, I say I ate a banana. Okay. Now, the literal meaning of the word banana is what? The fruit with the skin. So, if you take the vachyartham is the literal meaning, the dictionary meaning, it doesn't fit, right? Because nobody eats a banana with the skin. But when I say I ate a banana, mentally you do what? Your mental thinking process is what? You drop the skin and understand that I've eaten the fruit only. Is it not? So this dropping the skin is a process which is known as, there is a bhaga tyaga lakshanam. I don't know, those of who have done ATTC will remember. Bhaga means part, Tyaga means dropping or renouncing. Lakshanam is the process, indicator. So here what you have done, the banana consists of the fruit and the skin. And the bhaga has been dropped. Bhaga tyaga has been done. What bhaga has been dropped? The skin has been dropped. And therefore the bhaga tyaga meaning, bhaga tyaga lakshanam of the banana is the fruit only and not the skin. So that is the implied meaning called lakshyartha. While the full meaning is what? There is the full fruit along with the skin. So when the rule is that you, whenever a word comes, you first apply the vachyartham, the direct meaning. If it doesn't make sense, then you apply the lakshyartham. And that we will see later also. When you say tattvamasi, there also you're doing the same thing. Why are you doing that? Because I gave you in fact, what I gave in the group some days back, tat is equal to what and tvam is equal to what, that you have to see, right? The tat part consists of Ishvara, that is, so Ishvara is the three worlds plus consciousness plus Brahman, and Jivatma is three bodies plus Atma. Now, obviously, the Anatma portion is there in both, in Ishvara as well as in Jivatma. The Anatma portions are simply not equal, because Ishvara's body consists of the three universes, the three prapanchas. Your body consists of three bodies. They cannot be equated. And therefore, if you have to say, I am Ishvara, for it to fit, you have to use Bhaga, Tyaga, Lakshana. You cannot use the Vachyartham. The Vachyartham literally is, Ishvara is three universes, the Prapanchatrayam plus consciousness. And you are the three bodies plus consciousness. Vachyartham will never fit. And therefore, you use Lakshyartham by dropping the Prapanchas and the Sharirams. There you get Brahman is equal to Atma. And there you can very confidently say, I, the Atma, is equal to Brahman Ishvara. Okay, so it is Vachyartham and Lakshyartham. So here, the first Ahami is Ahankara, where you are saying, I am the consciousness reflected in the mind, in the subtle body. So Ahami is Arthi. While the Ahami is Vachyartham. While in the two other Ahams, you have used Lakshyartham. You have dropped the bodies, referring to the real, pure, unlimited consciousness. So this is Lakshyartham, the implied meaning. And then what is meant by Sfurati, Atma shining forth? Is there an experience of the Atma shining? No, that we know. As advanced Vedantic students, we know that there can be never any specific experience of Brahman or Atma. Why cannot there be any experience of Brahman or Atma? That question you should be able to answer by now.
Because it is
It
apramaya.
means duality.
Experience involves duality. Any experience involves duality because there is the pramata, the pramanam, and the pramayam. The knower, the instrument of knowledge, and the known entities are there. Triputi. Each of these is limited by space and time. And therefore, the moment you say experience, any specific experience, you should know that each component of that experience is limited by space and time, and therefore finite. And therefore, any experience which is experienced involving the finite components, that experience itself has to be finite. Therefore, I should know Vedantically that all specific experiences are finite only, are limited only. Now, in Sushupti Avastha, what do you experience? You do not have any specific experience. Your experience is that you don't have any specific experience. Duality is not there. And therefore, when this duality is not there, and this Triputi is not there, what is Triputi? The knower, the instrument of knowing, and the known object. So in Sanskrit, Pramata, Prameyam, Pramanam. When the Triputi is not present, you will see that you are free from specific experiences. Therefore, our understanding should be, whenever we talk about experience, there are two types. One is a specific experience which is finite because it is involving the instruments of the experience, the duality, the triputi as we call it. So specific experience of the finite is one type of experience. The other experience is the absence, or other, the experience of the absence of any specific experience. There, since there is no duality involved, there you are not limited. You do not having, you are free from all specific experiences. There is no limitation at all, like Sushupti Avastha or Samadhi for that matter. Whereas wherever there is a specific experience, you are limited by these three. Now, for example, in Jagrata Avastha, you have to be aware that you are a conscious being enjoying experiences. Is it not? When I am in my Jagrata Avastha, I say that I am so and so, I am a pramata. I am using my pramanam, which is, supposing I am watching a rose or some movie. Okay. So I am saying that I am the pramata. I am using the pramanam, which are the eyes, to watch the rose or the apple or the movie, which is the prameyam. So what is the thought? I am a conscious being. That I am a conscious being, I am the one experiencing. That thought is the experiencer status, which is called pramata. For that experiencer status, you need a mind, you need the reflecting medium. Now, this experiencer status is there in Jagrata Avastha, is there in Swapna Avastha, but it is not there in Sushupti Avastha. So this is the argument, that this experiencer status of mind, my pramata role, my pramata status, which is what? It is RC. In Tattvoda terms, the pramata status is that of RC status. That RC status is available in Jagrata Avastha, is available in Swapna Avastha, but it is missing in Sushupti Avastha. And therefore, it comes in Jagrata Avastha, it stays in Swapna Avastha, it goes away in Sushupti Avastha, it comes back again in Jagrata Avastha. Therefore, this status is subject to arrival and departure, and therefore it is mithya. Anything which is subject to arrival and departure is mithya. Why?
Dependent entity.
No, because it is time bound.
It is
Yeah,
time
it
bound,
comes
limited
and
by
goes.
time. It is not the intrinsic nature.
What is the pramanam for this?
Satya always is there. It doesn't come and go.
What is the pramanam?
In English.
Anybody? Tattvabodha, pramanam.
Sukshma Sharira.
Trikale api tishtati.
Iti Sat.
What does that mean?
That which exists in all three
All
times.
three times.
Is Sat. And therefore, does this exist?
No.
What does the Tattvabodha, how does Tattvabodha define mithya?
A dependent entity, Parat.
It says Trikale api tishtati iti Sat. Everything else is mithya, it says.
Yes.
So you have to pull this out from there. Anything which is there all throughout, which means that which is not subject to arrival and departure is Sat. And anything therefore which is subject to arrival and departure and is therefore not available in all the three time frames is mithya. And that is why we say that RC is mithya, because RC is available only during Jagrat and Swapna, and it goes away during Sushupti Avastha. Therefore, it is subject to arrival and departure. Therefore, it is not Trikale Tashtishthati. Therefore, it is mithya. And since this is mithya, your RC being mithya is fine. The experiencer status being mithya is fine. Now, what is the main idea, the main corollary of the fact that experiencer status is mithya, that pramata is mithya? The main corollary is that since pramata is mithya, any limitation caused by the experiencer status of pramata is also mithya. That is the main corollary. Since the RC is mithya, any problems that arise because of RC status is also mithya. That is the main corollary. And therefore, I know that I am Satyam and the RC is mithya. I know I am OC and the RC is mithya. Therefore, any problem at all, whatever type, whatever place problem, which arising from the status of mithya is also mithya and cannot affect me. Therefore, I am negating the idea that I am limited. I am negating the idea that I can be subject to any sort of limitation. Correct understanding is I am that limitless Brahman. The conviction that I am limitless, that conviction is very often called in Shastram, it is called Anubhuti, experience. Remember, the term is only being used for communication. The understanding that I am limitless is called Anubhuti. In fact, the teaching of Tattvamasi means what? You are Brahman, right? That teaching, some acharyas call that teaching as Upadesha Vakyam, the sentences which convey teaching. And if I am teaching you Tattvamasi, how, and if I ask you, how have you understood this statement? How will you reply to me?
Aham Brahmasmi.
You will say Aham Brahma Asmi, right? So this teacher's words, again, I'm saying these are some of the phrases used by different acharyas. So teacher's words are Tattvamasi or words to that effect, which is the Upadesha Vakyam. Upadesha means instructions. Vakyam means sentences. And therefore, those sentences are defined as instructional sentences, Upadesha Vakyam. While your understanding is defined as Aham Brahmasmi, which many acharyas call as Anubhava Vakyam, experienced statement. Okay, so you experience yourself as Brahman. It has to be very carefully understood. It is not that you have a Brahman experience. You understand that you are Brahman. That understanding is called experience. Because experience is always direct. And this is aparoksha jnanam. Aham Brahmasmi is understanding yourself as Brahman without any subject-object relationship. Right? When you say that my name is so-and-so, that both the words, or you say I am, let us say, June tells me I am June. Okay. Now both the words I and June, they point to what person? June only, right? There is no subject, there is no object. That differentiation, that lack of differentiation of subject and object, that is what is called understanding, anubhuti sometimes. Not a correct word, but it is called. So they should not be confused by that word. So this conviction that I am the limitless Brahman is called experience of Atma by some people. We would rather not use that word. We would rather say that I understand, I know I am Atma. And when you say no, again remember, the subject-object duality is not there. When you say, I know the apple, there is subject-object duality. There is you, the knower. There is apple, the known. But when I say I am Brahman, you is Brahman, the subject is Brahman, the known is also Brahman. Knower and the known are both the same. That subject-object duality is absent. That is how one should understand this Aham Brahmasi statement. Okay. So that doesn't mean that perceptually things go away, For example, you experience the earth as stationary, but your knowledge tells you that the earth is moving around the sun at a massive pace. Now, your perception is the earth is stationary, but your knowledge is that earth is moving. Or take the example of the sun rising and setting. Your perception is that sun rises and sets, but you know that that is caused by the rotation of the earth. Which is stronger, the perception or the knowledge?
Perception.
Knowledge. The knowledge should be strong.
Which is stronger means which dismisses the
Knowledge.
other.
The
The
knowledge.
knowledge.
Knowledge
Knowledge.
dismisses your perception, right?
Perception.
It is not that when you perceive the sun rising and setting, you dismiss the knowledge that it is because of the earth rotating. Because of the knowledge that earth is rotating, you dismiss your perception, saying the perception is wrong. And therefore, remember that perception of duality is not opposed to understanding of non-duality. That is what is being conveyed. You can perceive all the duality you want as long as you understand that everything is non-dual alone. Okay, this is the very beautiful little verse. Understanding it is very important. Okay, so we'll continue with that.
One question.
Yes, please.
So Aham Brahmasmi thought that you told us is basically not a thought. It will be.
It is very much a thought. Any knowledge is only in the form of thoughts. You cannot have knowledge which.
So, but when there is thought, there is duality, right?
Yes, your learning is always in duality. That is why I said perception of duality is not opposed to understanding of non-duality. Addressing exactly your doubt. You can perceive duality, but your understanding should be non-dual. You will definitely perceive duality. Why? Because all your sense organs are designed to perceive duality.
Okay.
Therefore,
Thank you, sir. Mananam.
More mananam. Okay. So we now chant the 21st verse. Please unmute yourself. Idam aham pada bhikkyamanvaham.
Idam
Ahamalina pyalaya sattaya. Okay. So let us give you the word breakups. Idam, aham, pada. The avagraha there has been dropped. So idam, aham, pada, abhikhyam, anvaham. Idam, aham, pada, abhikhyam, anvaham. Ahami, lina ke api. Again, that anvaya has to be dropped. The pyala has to be broken into api. So ahami, lina ke api, alaya, sattaya. Ahami, lina ke api, alaya, sattaya. So idam here is this. This means what? This OC, this unlimited consciousness. Abhikyam. Abhikyam is the real meaning, the implied real meaning, not the dictionary meaning, not the vachyartham. Therefore, abhikyam means lakshyartham. Okay, abhikyam is the lakshyartham, the implied meaning of what? Aham pada. So, idam aham pada. So idam is this OC. Aham pada abhikyam is the real meaning, the lakshyartham of the aham pada, of the word aham or I. And ahami lina ke api. Ahami is what we just discussed. What is ahami?
Ahankara, RC.
Ahamkara, RC. Ahami lina ke api. Lina is to resolve temporarily. Ahami lina ke api. Even when the ahankara temporarily resolves. When? Sushupti avastha. And when does it resolve? Anvaham. Anvaham means daily. So ahami, anvaham linaki api, even when the ahankara resolves into Sushupti avastha daily in sleep, what happens? This idam, which is the real meaning of the ahampada, the idam, which is the OC, alaya sattaya, alaya. Laya means destruction, alaya means non-destruction. So alaya, because of the indestructible nature of the OC, alaya, what happens to the OC? Sattaya. It keeps on shining. In short, this pure consciousness continues to exist and shine even when the ahankara is resolved into sushupti in every single day. Ahankara comes and goes, OC does not come and go. So RC is mithya, OC is satya. So this pure consciousness, OC, it continues to exist ahamilinake api, even when ahankara keeps coming and going, anvaham, daily. Anvaham here, of course, refers to the fact that you go into sleep every day, and in every day's sleep, there will be sushupti avastha also. And alayam, this OC continues without destruction at all, even when ahankara is resolved every single day. So I have, during Jagrata and Sushupti avastha, I have the limited I experience. I have the experience, anubhava, that I am limited. Okay. Now here comes the same problem that Khush said. My experience is limited I am finite. But knowledge tells me I am infinite. How do I know which one is true? It is always a fight between experience and knowledge. But here we have to remember that in any fight between experience and knowledge, wherever there is a contradiction between perception and experience and knowledge, providing it is correctly obtained, has the higher weight. Experiences, though perceptual, can be non-factual. Okay, a perceptual experience can be against the fact. Like what?
Sunrise and sunset.
Like the sunrise and sunset. And therefore, experiences, remember, can be an illusion even at the perceptual level. And of course, we know that experiences can be an illusion even at the mental level. At sensory level means at the physical level itself, with my five indriyas. If an experience can be an illusion because it is against the facts, much more at the mental level, the experience can be against the fact. Which is why I said we avoid using the word anubhava, experience, in talking whenever Atmajnanam is discussed. As far as possible, Vedantins avoid using the word anubhava or experience. But if some other Acharya uses, out of respect for him, we don't contradict him. We mentally translate the experience, word experience, anubhava, as the understanding that I am Brahman. When somebody says I'm experiencing Brahman, you have to understand it as I have understood that I am Brahman. Why? Because this limitless I is my real nature. Because the RC is subject to arrival and departure, the RC is mithya, it cannot be my real nature. And therefore that limitless OC alone is my real nature. There are times when I transact, because I am in Jagrata Avastha or in Swapna Avastha, the RC is functional. The mind is available, and therefore I am transacting with the world. I am aware of the transactions. Even in Swapna Avastha, in dream state also, I can remember that I had a dream. Therefore, transactions I remember. The question is, when I continue, I here is what? OC. When I, the OC, continue without any transactions, which means in Sushupti Avastha, because the mind is not available, I am still continuing as the OC, right? Will I know that I am continuing without transactions? After all, in Jagrata Avastha and Swapna Avastha, I am able to recall that I had transactions, right? And therefore, I am convinced that yes, I am very much transacting. But in Sushupti Avastha, Shastra tells me that you are available there too, but you cannot recall any transactions because your mind is resolved. The very fact that you say that I am continuing without transactions or experience, that fact should indicate to you that you will not know also that you are continuing without transactions and experience. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? If I am continuing as OC in Sushupti Avastha without any experience or without any transactions, I will not know that there will be no experience or no transaction. How will I not know? Why do I say that? What is the logic behind that?
Because the RC is not, like the mind is not available.
Mind is not available, but remember that knowing, the word knowing, is also a transaction. When you know something, you have used the mind, therefore it's a transaction. Anything where RC is used, you have a transaction. Knowing you're using the RC, therefore it's a transaction. Since the presumption here is that I don't have the RC available with me at that point of time, obviously I won't be transacting also. I would be knowing that I have not had any transactions. Okay. Now we go to verse number 22. If you can unmute yourself. Vigrahendriya pranadhitamaha.
Vigrahendriya
Nahamekasa tajjadam yasat. Okay. So look at the words. Vigraha, Indriyaha, Pranaha, Dhiha, Tamaha. So there are those words. Vigraha, Indriya, Prana, Dhihi, Dhihi. You can say Dhihi and Tamaha. Second line is Na aham ekasat. Na aham ekasat. Tad jadam hi asat. So that breakups are to be carefully noted. Vigraha indriya pranaha dhiha tamaha na aham ekasat tat jadam hi asat. Now, Vigraha indriya pranaha dhiha tamaha. Vigraha means what? Hindi you should know. What is Vigraham?
Murti or a form.
Vigraham actually means form. Okay.
Yeah.
The Murti is a form, so fine. Now, Vigraha here, because there is a form, is referring to the Shariram, the body. How do we know? You look at the rest of it. Indriya Prana Dhiyana. Okay, so Vigraham is the body, the Annamaya Kosha. Indriyam, sense organs. Pranaha, Pranamaya Kosha. Dhihi, Dhihi here represents two things, Manomaya and Vijnanamaya. And Tamaha represents Anandamaya Kosha because Tamaha is ignorance. Okay. So this first line is talking about the Panchakoshas. What does it say? You have to connect it to the first word, Naham, of the second line. So Vigraya, Indraya, Pranaha, Dhiha, Tamaha. The Panchakoshas, Naham. I am not the Panchakoshas. Why? Tat Jadam. Because all these are Jadam. They are insentient. They are not conscious. And therefore, Hi Asat. Therefore, they are non-existent. Asat literally means non-existence. And so there are, in the word Asat in Sanskrit, you can take two meanings. I think we discussed this in Gita class some time back. There are two words which you prefix to asat to indicate the two meanings. One is mithya rupa asat and one is tuchha rupa asat. Are you familiar with the words?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
What do they
Yes.
mean?
Second chapter.
What do they mean? Mithya rupa asat and tuchha rupa asat. What do they mean?
Tuchha Rupa means it doesn't exist at all, like the horns of a rabbit.
Like the horns of a rabbit. And
Yes.
mithya rupa is dependent existence. Right?
Dependent existence.
So here when he says tad jadam hi asat, remember he is referring to the panchakoshas. So it is not tuchha rupa asat, it is mithya rupa asat. Essentially he is saying that these panchakoshas are not me because they are insentient and therefore they are mithya rupa asat. Whereas aham ekasat. Aham ekasat. I am that one truth. I am that pure consciousness, the OC, the single truth. Okay. Now, the Shastram presents Atma or Brahman as pure existence and pure consciousness principles. Okay. This again we have seen in great detail in Bhagavad Gita. So those who have not attended those classes would probably find this a bit difficult to grasp. So scriptures present Atma as pure existence and pure consciousness. So what do I mean when I say pure existence? The best way to explain is when I say fire is hot. I am presenting fire as the heat principle. Here the similarity is consciousness principle, existence principle. And when I present fire as the heat principle, that heat principle can never be experienced without what?
A medium.
Without a medium. Okay, it can be a finger, it can be the water which is boiling, something. That medium is the equivalent of the reflecting medium which we use in Vedanta. So heat, pure heat, the heat principle can never be experienced without a intermediate reflecting medium. That medium reflects the heat, which is how we experience. So if I put my finger in the fire, the finger becomes a reflecting medium. If I'm standing in front of the fire, then my body becomes the reflecting medium, and that's why I feel the heat in the body. So Shastra presents it this way. And therefore, it's a rather abstract concept. Why? Because, you know, it is easy for words which we hear to remain. The best way to present it is by saying that sometimes words just remain as words in your mind, you know, and your mind doesn't really extract a meaning for the words. Do I make any sense? Sometimes the word just remains as a word. The real meaning of that word is either very known in a very confused manner or not known at all. Okay, that's one of the problems with Shastra. And therefore, if you want to understand the meaning of the word, you have to slowly refine your intellect. That is why we say that for a very long time, this teaching has to go on for a very long time, sustained, systematic teaching for a very long period of time, because the initial months or even years are spent in refining the intellect, in fine-tuning the intellect so that we can grasp these subtle concepts, subtle meanings which have to be really pulled out and extracted. And therefore, scriptures present that the scriptures recommend that first you have to understand the material world. You have to understand Anatma, know the difference between Anatma and Atma, and then only should you be trying to understand the Atma. Now, this material world can be divided into 5 layers. Okay, so each layer is a little more refined and little more abstract than the previous layer. So if you have to start understanding the material world itself, you start examining the most grossest form of matter and slowly go backwards, reaching a less gross, and then moving into the refined forms of matter. Only then, with this process, can the mind be made sharp enough to focus on the non-material abstract Atma. And Shastram gives you many upasanas, many meditational techniques to help refine the mind. Now, broadly, this fivefold classification can be done at two levels. One is at the level of the what is called the subjective level, that is the jiva, and one can be at the objective level other than the jiva, right? So here remember the word subjective. When I use, I am saying aham level. Aham is the ahami, the RC level. You can do this fivefold classification at the RC level, and you can do it at the Jagat level also. So Jiva and Jagat there are. So at the Jiva level, you can divide into fivefold. At the Jagat level also, you can divide into fivefold. At the Jagat level, you've already seen this in Tattva Bodha. It is the Pancha Bhutani classification. There are 5 levels. Prithvi is there, the grossest material form. Why is it the grossest? Because it is perceivable by all the 5 sense organs. And it has got 5 properties: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Okay. Once you have examined that, then you can move. This earth now becomes the karyam, the product, and the karanam becomes water, jalam. Little more subtle than earth. And when you say little more subtle than earth, you are saying that while earth has 5 properties and therefore is the grossest, water will have, jalam will have less than 5 properties, and therefore it is not as gross. It is little more subtle. And therefore water has 4 properties: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, and Rasa. Gandha is not there in water, the sense of smell. Then you go to Agni, which has 3 properties: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, therefore more subtle than earth and water. Then you go to Vayu, Shabda and Sparsha only, more subtle still, perceivable by only 2 sense organs. Remember when I said 5 properties, it means perceivable by all the 5 indriyas. 4 properties means perceivable by only 4 indriyas. 3 properties means perceivable by only 3 indriyas. Shabda Sparsha means perceivable by only 2 indriyas. And space, Akasha, which has only the subtlest form of water, of matter, which has only Shabda property, no sense organ can grasp. So with this kind of a meditational practice, the intellect slowly gets refined. And if the intellect dwells on these kind of meditation for a long period of time, then finally it is refined enough to grasp abstract concepts. And once you can understand abstract concepts, then you can focus on the existence and consciousness principle. What is the last non-abstract concept that you grasp? Akasha, space. From Akasha, you graduate to the existence principle, which pervades the Akasha, but is a non-material principle. Right? So that is at the objective level. But here in this verse, Ramana comes to the aham level, the subjective level. Subjective level also, there are 5 classifications, which you have seen Tattva Bodha: Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. And this meditation is called Pancha Kosha Vivekaha, meditating and discriminating between these koshas. So you start with Annamaya Kosha and meditate upwards, and then go to Anandamaya Kosha. Right. So the very briefly, this whole meditational technique, the Panchakosha technique, appears in an Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad, which we shall do in due course. So you take the Annamaya Kosha, which is the grossest physical form. First you say, I am Annamaya Kosha. So Annamaya Kosha Atma. Atma, remember, means I. Okay. Annamaya Kosha Atma is the first level. And then in the meditation, you will say that Shastram tells me that Atma is got no form, Atma is all pervading, etc., etc. And then you will say, but Annamaya Kosha has got a form. Annamaya Kosha cannot be all pervading because it's got a boundary, and so on and so forth. Shastram tells me that Atma is never born, but Annamaya Kosha is born. Shastram tells me that Atma never dies, but Annamaya Kosha dies. So all these contradictory perceptual evidence you will think about. And what should be a conclusion? That my understanding that Atma is Annamaya Kosha is wrong. And therefore, you reduce Annamaya Kosha to Anatma. By saying what? Pranamaya Kosha Atma. So you move one step backwards. Now that Pranamaya Kosha is the Atma, Annamaya Kosha you have reduced to Anatma. Then you do the same analysis with Pranamaya Kosha. What is that? Prana is moving, Atma does not move. Pranamaya Kosha has a death. When there is subtle body is destroyed, Pranamaya Kosha also dies. But Atma cannot die. That's what Shastra tells me. And so on. All the evidence you gather, and then you say Pranamaya Kosha also cannot be me, the Atma. Therefore, Pranamaya Kosha is Anatma. By saying that, you move backwards to Manomaya Kosha. Okay. So this sort of meditation is the Panchakosha Vivekaha in Taittiriya Upanishad. What happens is you come to Anandamaya Kosha, where the only thing you know is what? There is lack of any knowledge, blankness. And when you experience this blankness also, you have to remember, the Shastra says, in this blankness also, I, the OC, am there. So it is this consciousness, this OC, which is able to perceive the blankness. So this blankness should not be mistaken for nothingness. It is the finest. Anandamaya Kosha is matter only, Anatma only. And therefore it is Jadam only, but it is pervaded by consciousness. And this kind of, when you do this, this whole process is called the Panchakosha Viveka. So anything material is subject to the laws of nature and undergoes changes, whereas I, the OC, am not subject to any laws, and therefore I am not subject to any modifications. So remember that whenever we talk about any matter, including Panchakoshas, there are 5 aspects, there are 4 aspects which should come to mind immediately. Anything which is Anatma, number 1, Bhautikam. What is Bhautikam?
Made of matter.
I want a better definition for Tattva Bodha.
External.
Panchabhuta.
Tattva Bodha makes it very clear. Panchabhuta is all right, but you know.
No,
it's the product which results from the recombination of the Pancha Mahabhutas.
Correct. Bhautikani. Bhautikani is what? Who said that? That was who gave the correct answer?
It's the product which results from the recombination of the
Vaishnavi.
Bhutas
Of course, it had to be you. Yes. Okay. So Vaishnavi is given the correct answer. Bhautikani is the product which comes after Panchikaranam. You must remember this from Tattva Bodha. Panchabhutani is undergoing Panchikaranam. Give you what? Bhautikanis. Bhautikani is the elementals in English. Bhutanis are the elements. So elements after undergoing Panchikaranam, what do they give you? The new product. You remember the ratio, right? 50% of the original element plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. Do you remember that table? You don't
Yes.
remember. That table is
Yes.
what you're referring to. That new grossified element which is visible, that has got 50% of the original element after which it is named. For example, grossified Prithvi will have 50% Prithvi and 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 of all the other 4. That is the elements. So Bhautikam. They are made up of the elementals, Bhautikanis. That's number 1. Number 2 is any anatma is drishyam, object of experience. So Bhautikam made up of elementals, made up of the Bhautikanis. Number 2, drishyam, object of experience. Number 3, savikaram, subject to change. Number 4, jadam or inert. 4 things you must remember. Well, who am I? I am Satchit Atma Ekam. Matter is Anekam, multiples. I am Satchit Atma Ekam. And as I said, you start with Annamaya Kosha, you reach Manomaya Kosha, you reach Vijnanamaya Kosha, you reach Anandamaya Kosha, and finally you come to Atma. This method of Panchakosha Viveka is what Ramana Maharshi is summarizing in this particular verse. The words are important. He refers to Vigraha means Annamaya Kosha, anatomical part. Vigraha means form, shape, and the body. Prana is Pranamaya Kosha, the physiological personality. Dhi has 2 meanings. The Manomaya Kosha, the emotional personality. Also, Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual personality. And Tamaha is ignorance, darkness. So, Anandamaya Kosha. Tamaha means total blankness experienced in deep sleep stage. This has also an experience, and therefore it is being negated. Note that the word Indriya, is to be connected to 3 koshas. What are they? TV, Tattva. I keep saying them, but just keep on revising Tattva.
Annamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha.
Exactly. Indriyas are to be connected to 3 koshas. And Tamaha is negated by Sakshi Chaitanya. So, Vedanta says that I should claim this Sakshi Chaitanyam, this consciousness principle, the witness consciousness principle, as my true nature, because I am different from the Panchakoshas, because the Panchakoshas are inert, because they are made up of matter, while I am the non-material consciousness principle. Therefore, body has a borrowed existence, the world has a borrowed existence. Everything has a borrowed existence. And borrowed from whom?
Atma.
Atma.
And borrowed from whom?
OC.
You are in the 22nd verse, which means you have practically completed Vedanta.
Borrow from me.
Borrowed from me. Until you come to borrowed from me, when you say borrowed from OC or borrowed from Atma, what are you saying? I am somebody and Atma is somebody else. You have not understood, you have not assimilated. Therefore, you have to say borrowed from me. The whole world borrows consciousness and existence only from me. I am the waker. The whole world is created, sustained, and dissolves into me. With this knowledge, all the fears vanish. Like your fear of the dream tiger vanishes when you wake up. Therefore, the entire problems, fears, apprehensions created by this mithya jagat, it vanishes when you know that you are the creator of the jagat. Remember that only after clay knowledge, the pot can be negated. And therefore, ahankara nashaha, destruction of the RC, can be understood not by understanding RC, by understanding OC, the ahankara alone. Sorry, not OC, ahankara, OC, the consciousness principle, the Atma alone. You have to understand OC as the substratum of the RC. By the understanding that OC is the support for the RC, without which RC cannot exist, that understanding is called ahankara nashaha, the destruction of the RC. Because knowing that I am the support, without me ahankara cannot exist, is the knowledge that ahankara is a fictitious entity, not capable of harming me at all. So with this, we'll stop. Any questions?
Om Acharya ji.
Yes, please.
This what we are saying that OC, the I, I'm sorry, the OC is existence. It is we have to think in terms of the samashti and not in terms of the vyashti for the jiva. Like the mithya jagat borrows existence from me, so it has to be applied to the whole jagat.
So
Because,
really speaking, it's only the upadhi, right?
Right.
When you say I am jiva, you are saying I am OC, basically. But I am OC with the upadhi of the three bodies. When you are saying Ishvara, you are saying I am OC with the upadhi of the three worlds.
Yes.
When you are saying I am OC full stop, you are dropping the upadhis.
Okay.
But you can never really say that I am the OC. Why? Because to say that you're the OC, you need the
I
upadhi.
need the RC. Yes.
And therefore, it can only be understanding that yes, I perceive the three upadhis, but I know that they are mithya.
Okay, thank you. Another question.
Yeah.
The mind resolves in the sushupti avastha as well as in the samadhi status. So what is essentially the difference there, if there is any?
That's a huge discussion, okay? Because as far as the yogis are concerned, they talk about knowledge with awareness, or awareness in samadhi avastha. But that's not true, because when the mind resolves, there can be no awareness. So the subtle thought is there, that sukshma vritti is there, which is that I don't know anything. That is the only vritti which remains.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So with this, we'll stop. And yes, June, in 6th chapter, Krishna refers to the spiritual prodigy, meaning basically the one who has not completed a spiritual journey and has been reborn in appropriate family as yoga bhrashta. Bhrashta basically means one whose journey has been not completed. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Shanti.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om
Thank
Namah
you for your patience.
Shivaya.
Om Namah
Thank you,
Shivaya.
Acharya. Thank you.